Hello, welcome to HBM's Crypto-Corner for Wednesday, March 30th, 2022. We have a few things to talk about, so let's get started. First is this very interesting article about the Patterson-Gimlin film written last November, which I somehow missed. Back to Bluff Creek, the Patterson-Gimlin film, A Pursuit of Sources at the Source of the Controversy. Stephen St. Thomas, November 30th, 2021. There's a little patch of Northern California woods near Bluff Creek where some say Bigfoot lives, or lived, in 1967 when Roger Patterson caught something on film that no one has been able to fully explain. If you've ever seen the iconic Bigfoot silhouette with head turned to look at you and the long arms floating out in front and back, you've seen the figure filmed by Patterson and his tracking buddy Bob Gimlin. I visited that patch of woods in October, 54 years to almost the day after their notorious encounter. It's about 100 miles inland from my doorstep in Humboldt County, so how can I not go see for myself? Into the wilds northeast of Willow Creek, I followed Rowdy Kelly to meet up with Daniel Perez, Robert Leiderman, and other Bluff Creek Project pilgrims making the annual trek. Leiderman has just published a book on the group's quest to rediscover the site. Driving beyond the pale of cell phone reception, 22 miles of an almost two-lane road followed by 2 miles of a rocky, almost one-lane road, and then a mile and a half hiking down into the creek basin, it occurred to me that the Patterson-Gimlin film is the best documentation we have that Bigfoot might exist. If the film is authentic, Bigfoot still lives out there. If it was a hoax, 50-plus years of debating the film's merits has been a big waste of time. Patterson and Gimlin were the perfect guys to either film a Bigfoot or orchestrate the hoax of the century. Early reports. The first account of the Patterson-Gimlin film was carried by the Times-Standard newspaper in Eureka, California. Around 9:30 p.m. on October 20th, 1967, a reporter took a call from a gasping, breathless source named Roger Patterson. Patterson said he had been working all year on a Bigfoot movie. Approximately 8 hours earlier, he and his aide, Bob Gillen, had encountered one near the bluff and Notice Creeks converge. Near where the bluff and Notice Creeks converge. They have the film to prove it, Patterson said, already on his way by airmail to his native Yakima, Washington for processing. The reporter, identity still uncertain, made the deadline for the Saturday morning paper, a write-up entitled Mrs. Bigfoot is Filmed. Patterson and Gimlin came around the bend in Bluff Creek where they both saw a giant humanoid creature some 80 to 90 feet away. Wait, I thought the reporter was identified as Al Tostado. Didn't Daniel Perez identify the reporter in this case as Al Tostado? I believe he did. My horse reared and fell, completely flattening a stirrup with my foot caught in it, Patterson said. My foot hurt, but I couldn't think about it because I was jumping up and grabbing the reins to try and control the horse. I saw that my camera in the saddlebag and grabbed it out. Patterson said the creature stood upright the entire time, reaching a height of about 6.5 to 7 feet, and an estimated weight between 350 and 400 pounds. I moved to take the pictures and told Bob to cover me. My gun was still in the scabbard. I grabbed the camera instead. The beast had breasts, silvery brown hair, and smelled like a dog out of the rain, rolling in something dead. While folks around the Humboldt Bay were reading the story over breakfast, Patterson and Gimlin were extricating their truck bearing 3 horses from a muddy Bluff Creek basin heading back to Washington. The next evening, they showed the developed 16mm film to a small audience in the home of Patterson's brother-in-law and financial benefactor, Al Diatley. 4 days later, they were showing the film to an audience of anthropologists and zoologists at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. Don Abbott, an anthropologist with the Provincial Museum in Victoria, said Tuesday he has some evidence to support the film, wrote reporter Tony Ebers in Vancouver's The Province on October 25th. Plaster casts of huge footprints found in the same California region in September. I went down there. It's a remote region about 100 miles northeast of Eureka. 2 months ago, and examined many of the footprints, he said. It's either a highly elaborate hoax or some of these hairy humanoids exist. Abbott had framed the two competing narratives quite succinctly. Bigfoot exists, or the film is an amazing hoax. John Napier, a primatologist who studied the film at the Smithsonian Institution a few weeks later, articulated a third variation. Bigfoot might exist even if the film is a hoax. Napier narrated the first mass media dissection of Bigfoot, a BBC documentary entitled Bigfoot, America's Abominable Snowman. Airing in Britain 9 months after the Bluff Creek encounter, the documentary featured Roger Patterson, a parade of scientists and scholars, and B-roll Patterson shot in Yakima of his posse dramatizing Hot Pursuit, complete with Gimlin wearing a long black Apache wig. Sasquatch Archives curator Todd Prescott made the BBC program available on YouTube for the first time this past October. Is there a Bigfoot? Napier says in conclusion. Personally, I like to think there was. From my point of view, it's good scientific policy to keep at least part of one's mind open. I've lied about 5% of mine on this particular issue. In search of sources. In any journalist inquiry, we're looking for credible first-hand sources who can corroborate a particular narrative. The obvious first-hand sources for the Bluff Creek story are Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. Patterson stuck to his story until he died of cancer in 1972. In 1968, he submitted to a lie detector test required by National Wildlife Magazine as a precondition for their coverage in search for Bigfoot. Gimlin, now 90, spent decades in silence before coming out in interviews and speaking engagements affirming the story he told in 1967. Skeptics have rightfully pointed out that the pair could be incredible, engaging in a conspiracy of two in hopes of making $1 million, as Patterson bog trade Greg Long conjectures in the making of Bigfoot. So, secondhand sources are available as well. Did others corroborate any parts of the Patterson-Gimlin narrative? Did anyone see them in the Bluff Creek area? Did they talk to family members and friends before or after the filming, saying anything to substantiate an authentic experience or a hoax? Al Hodgson was Patterson's point man in Humboldt County. Hodgson operated the Willow Creek Variety Store and kept Patterson apprised of Bigfoot reports in the area. It was Hodgson's tip about those September footprints now found near Bluff Creek Mountain Road that brought Patterson and Gimlin to the area in 1967. Hodgson, who died in 2018, confirmed many times that Patterson and Gimlin drove into Willow Creek around 6:30 p.m. to give him the news about their fateful October 20th encounter. They also conferred with U.S. Forest Service Fire Inspector Seal McCoy before returning to their camp and horses around midnight. 9 days later, a taxidermist and tracker named Bob Titmus drove to the Bluff Creek site from Redding, California. A Bigfoot enthusiast, since he documented Bluff Creek prints discovered by Jerry Crew in 1958, Titmus made plaster casts of 10 footprints and drew a map of the creature's movements. Patterson's friends and family were interviewed extensively by Greg Long some 30 years after the facts. While most of his sources in the Yakima area described Patterson as unorthodox, conniving, and irresponsible, no one in the family reported any secret insider knowledge that the Bluff Creek film was a fake. Al Diatley, the Yakima construction mogul who married Patterson's sister, told Long he had doubts about the film's authenticity but never asked Patterson about it point blank. Roger believed there was a Bigfoot, no doubt about it, Diatley said. I don't think he would claim it to be morally wrong to fake it to make enough money to prove it. He didn't take any of the money he made to increase the standard of living for him or his children. He spent it all on proving it. Diatley speculated that if the film were indeed a hoax, the most likely candidate for the man wearing a monkey suit would be Bob Gimlin. Which leads us back to another possible first-hand source, the man, if any, who wore the monkey suit. Enter the hoaxers. If the Patterson-Gimlin film was a hoax, then a third person went to Bluff Creek in 1967 and wore the Bigfoot suit. Al Diatley wasn't the only person to suspect Bob Gimlin. Ray Wallace claimed to know exactly which Yakima Indian was in that monkey suit, according to naturalist Robert Pyle, although he never actually said Gimlin's name. Wallace was Jerry Crew's employer in 1958 and initially expressed dismay that the Bigfoot prints found on the Bluff Creek Road construction site were hurting his business by scaring workers off. He later went on to take credit for the prints and for directing Patterson to the spot along Bluff Creek where he would most likely find the Bigfoot. Wallace's wife, Elna, claimed to wear a Bigfoot suit for some of Ray's hoaxes, but the family never admitted to hoaxing Patterson at Bluff Creek. At this time, it is unknown if Wallace was involved in a hoax with Patterson or hoaxed Patterson, wrote Strange Magazine editor Mark Trevisky in 1997. If there was a hoax, Patterson was either a hoaxer or was hoaxed. A year after Trevisky's article, Fox TV offered a source for a different monkey suit candidate. In the opening segment of World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Finally Revealed, a retired executive of American National Enterprises, A&E, claimed that Patterson was on the company payroll in 1967 with instructions to hoax a Bigfoot sighting for what would become Bigfoot, Man or Beast. They would put the Bigfoot film together with another film, such as Cougar Country, said Clyde Reiki on national television. The Bigfoot film itself would increase the attendance tremendously. Reiki said Jerry Romney, a close friend of former A&E chairman Frank Olson, told him many times that he wore the monkey suit for Patterson. Romney also appears on World's Greatest Hoaxes to deny any involvement. Within weeks of the broadcast, local attorney Barry Woodard told the Yakima Herald Republic he had a client who claimed he donned the monkey suit for Patterson. The unnamed client wanted help negotiating a deal for rights to his story as well as advice on if he might be in legal trouble for the hoax, Woodard said. The client, later identified by Greg Long as Patterson Posse member Bob Hieronymus, also passed a polygraph test. He was asked 3 specific questions on his involvement in this and the suit, and he passed each one of those, Woodard said. Hieronymus, who claims Gimlin offered him $1,000 to travel separately to Bluff Creek, rendezvous in secret and wear the suit, passed a second polygraph test on the 2005 episode of Lie Detector. Hieronymus said he kept his role secret for more than 30 years because of a promise and hoped he would eventually get paid. Long's The Making of Bigfoot not only paints a sinister portrait of Patterson but also extols Hieronymus' hoax claims about the others. The final chapter features Virginia-based costumer Philip Morris claiming to be the one who made the suit Hieronymus wore. Well, first of all, he was from North Carolina, not Virginia. Philip Morris was. I was watching TV and this film was being shown, and I see my gorilla suit, Morris told Long. I was the only one who was making a gorilla suit like that at the time. Morris said he talked to Patterson several times on the phone and sold him a $335 suit made of synthetic dynel and fur attached to a zippered one-piece costume of knitted cloth. A headpiece, gloves, and feet completed the look. The claims flew in the face of Trevisky's previous reporting that John Chambers, legendary costumer for Planet of the Apes, had made Patterson's monkey suit. They also countered Hieronymus' own description of a three-piece, legs, torso, head suit Patterson made out of horsehide. Back to Bluff Creek. I see that was a contradiction. See, but Greg Long refused to say it's a contradiction. Those who believe Roger Patterson filmed a previously unverified hominoid on October 20th, 1967, want hoax claimers to bring forward definitive proof, e.g. the suit someone wore in Bluff Creek that day. Skeptics are suspicious that Patterson is the only one in history to go down to Bluff Creek with a camera and bring back footage of the elusive creature. The only legitimate way to prove the film was a real Sasquatch, writes anthropologist David Daegling in Bigfoot Exposed, is to demonstrate beyond any doubt that what Patterson filmed was beyond the ability of human fabrication. So the debate goes on close to 60 years after the film was taken. My biggest insight from visiting the Bluff Creek film site this fall was seeing how remote the area is and how difficult it would be for Patterson and Gimlin to film a Bigfoot at 1:30 p.m., load more film and make plaster casts, drive into Eureka to mail the film, and get back to Willow Creek by 6:30 to share the good news with Al Hodgson. Not beyond human ability, but difficult. In Bob Hieronymus' version, he drives to Eureka to mail the film. Much more plausible, but not even Al Diatley can explain how 16mm film Kodachrome film got developed in time to screen it by Sunday evening. If Bob Gimlin is harboring some secret truth, he only has a few years left to come clean. Well, I don't think the PG film is a hoax, personally. But I don't base my entire quote unquote belief in Bigfoot on the PG film. I had a sighting, so I can say that Sasquatch do exist. Independent of the Patterson Gimlin film. But still, I think the PG film shows the real Sasquatch. I don't think it's a hoax. I don't think Gimlin is lying either. So, but I've said this many times. I've gone on record as saying I don't think the PG film is a hoax. I don't think Gimlin is a liar. I think Hieronymus is a liar. I don't think Bob Gimlin is a liar. Now here's something interesting. Margaret Thatcher once planned to hunt for the Loch Ness Monster with trained dolphins by Paul Seaburn, March 19, 2022. Here is a sign the Scots, especially around Loch Ness, are getting worried that there have been no Loch Ness Monster sightings yet in 2022. The local media has resurrected a story about Margaret Thatcher and her attempt to find the creature while she was Prime Minister with the use of trained dolphins. Really? Did her staff, you don't think Maggie strapped on a scuba tank and dove with the dolphins herself, do you? Find anything? This department is presently considering the issue of a license to import two bottlenose dolphins from America for the purpose of exploring Loch Ness. The Daily Record reminds us that just a few days after her election to the office in 1979, new Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher ordered Environment Department civil servant David Weymouth to send a letter to Stuart Walker at the Scottish Home and Health Department about renting or borrowing some trained dolphins in the U.S. Navy. Among those who knew about it, animal rights activists objected to using the dolphins for such a non-dolphin purpose, and Nessie fans feared this might lead to capturing the creature and possibly killing it. But the new Thatcher government clearly saw the potential for starting off with a cryptid bang and giving Scotland and the UK a much needed tourism boost. Of course, the project needed a realistic purpose, so it was described as a plan to give Nessie legal protection from poachers and bounty hunters. Does something that has managed to escape capture and even detection for thousands, perhaps millions of years really need security help from humans? The inquiry is a serious one. We should like to give them at least a half serious reply. If Margaret Thatcher ever needed an excuse for such a strange scheme, perhaps when President Ronald Reagan found out about it and gave her a call, she could blame it on Sweden. Other secret documents revealed the Swedish government was considering protecting their own lake storage monster, Storage Jure, and wanted to know how the UK protected Nessie. While not wanting to appear uninformed or uncaring, the British government quickly initiated the Dolphin scheme. The half-serious reply to Sweden, saying that the Secretary of State for Scotland has powers to add the Loch Ness Monster to the Nature Conservancy Council list of endangered species needing protection. Okay, now we have evidence of two national governments exchanging notes about the protection of mythical monsters, a task deemed so serious that the British government hid the letters until 2006 when they were declassified. Before you ask, there's nothing else to see in the files because the dolphin-led search from Nessie never got off the ground or boat. However, it's still an interesting idea. Could trained dolphins actually find the monster hiding in Loch Ness? The U.S. Navy, as well as the former Soviet Navy, used dolphins to rescue lost swimmers, guard ships against enemy divers, locate mines, and locate and recover lost equipment on the seabed. They can dive to 1,000 feet. Loch Ness is 750 feet at its deepest point, so it's physically possible. But dolphins are considered to be highly intelligent. Would they snitch on a fellow marine animal? Could Boris Johnson redeem his reputation with another try? So, this is very interesting. Would it have worked? Well, who knows? We really don't know if it would have worked or not, but it would have been interesting to see it tried at least. But it never happened. Finally, there is the upcoming Ohio Bigfoot Conference, which features Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Cliff Barrickman, Matt Moneymaker, and Renee Holland as speakers, and Charlie Raymond as the MC or Master of Ceremonies. The fifth speaker has yet to be announced. I'm hoping Mark will announce it soon. Well, he has yet to announce the fifth speaker for the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, but it's coming up on April 30th, 2022. That'll be in about 4 weeks, a little over 4 weeks. So, those who are going, I will see you there because I have my ticket and everything ready to go. Should be a fun time for all. And that's going to do it for this week. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. You guys are the heart of the show. I always say that, but I always mean it. And I'll continue to do this as long as you guys want me to. And hey, until next week, y'all be good or be good at this. This is HBM's Cryptid-Corner.